We have China Uber Alice on KSCO.
Welcome to another program of China Uber Alice on AM 1080 KSCO. I'm Bill Graff along with Nan Su from the Epoch Times and Amy Howe from her life experience under Chairman Mao's Communist China in her youth. And we are here to talk about China and how it affects the world. First of all, good afternoon, Nan.
Hey, good afternoon, Billy and Amy. Amy, how are you?
I'm fine. Good afternoon, Billy and Nan.
Okay, hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We know that nowadays it's hard to travel away from your house and it's hard to have a big family and friends together, but we do hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving with a big turkey.
Or ham or duck.
Okay. We're going to talk...
Virtual turkey.
A virtual, okay, all right. Oh, that's another way to do it. And actually, literally, that's a lot of things being done nowadays. So today we're going to talk about a possible connection. Actually, many media already reported the Dominion voting system. Nowadays, I hope you already heard all the controversies around the Dominion voting system. We talked about that a couple times in our previous programs. But however, several media already reported in the last week that the parent company of a Dominion voting system, which is a company called Stable Streets Capital, that company, which is the parent company of a Dominion voting system, received $400 million from a Swiss bank. It's called UBS. $400 million just 1 month prior to the election day.
And one of the other things about that is that three of the four investors
of UBS Bank, it's from China. So basically 75% of that company, it's owned by Chinese government. So that it's the smoking gun, many people believe. We're going to talk about it. And unfortunately, not many major established media want to report this thing. But however, there have been more and more media focus their report and investigation on this.
The story has been picked up around the world.
That's right. And you know what? The first story I read about this was actually an Indian media, an Indian newspaper that reporting that.
Oh.
So that's you know, hey, I hope we are still living in this country called the greatest nation on earth. I mean, if we care, I mean,
free speech.
Yeah. Well, one thing I do know is if we possibly, our election is possibly can be manipulated by Beijing's leader. I don't think we can keep this greatest nation on earth for very long. So we're going to have honorable guests to join us later.
But first,
we're going to have our usual segment by Amy Howe. Amy lived in China, and during the Cultural Revolution time under Chairman Mao, she spent more than a decade of her life in the re-education program. So, Amy, well, what are you going to tell us today?
Yeah, I think I still had to finish the story. We didn't finish 2 weeks ago. I hope everybody still remember, maybe refresh and everybody's memory. It's the girl, and they want me to denounce. And I read her diary, and I was very much touched. So I wanted to talk to her. So I visited her in her village. And at first she didn't want to let me in. And because she was very depressed, very sad, she was wanted to suicide. And then finally, she let me in because I told her, and the book she quoted in her diary, Anna Karenina, the guy translated this Russian novel to the Chinese is my relative. And so she let me in. She told me because that guy, Uncle Ro, also is her father's best friend. So that's why she let me in. Then she started talking about her tragic story and why she wanted to suicide. I just mentioned that 2 weeks ago, probably everybody forgot about that. And the Shanghai Caring Committee coming to visiting us on behalf of our parents, but they still have the agenda. It's called the class struggle, and to divide and conquer us, to helping the CCP to further brainwash us, reform us. And so they found out that Ling lived with her boyfriend, Li, and they had a baby. And so before they get to her village, and they tried to hide the baby, but they just took the baby to the beach, and by the sand pit, they saw that maybe some village in the world took the baby and taking care of it. Then later they can find her back. And so they put the baby to the beach by the sand pit, but somehow nobody picked her up. And then the tide is coming, and the baby washed away by the water. And then they found it in the downstream, the village, and baby's dead. So the committee want to charge them as a murder, and so interrogated them. And then the leader of the committee, he is also, in that time they have this whole group. Actually is some people is a rebelling group. They were a leader of the group, and some other people and actually was punished by the rebelling group, and they coming with and a conservative group people. So the one saved my life, and that was the old Chen, and he belonged to the conservative group. But this old Ding, and he is the rebelling group, also their leader. So he talked to the girl, and they separate the interrogation. He threatening the girl. He said, I want you to sign the paper and to accusing and your boyfriend is a rapist. So that way, he said that, you not both go to jail. So one of us, you can stay. And, but the condition is, and also he wanted her and to sleeping with him and provide a sexual favor. And she did. She did turn her boyfriend in and signed to do everything, but because he promised her, eventually they both were released. They also were, get transferred to other place. Nobody will know what's happened to them. So basically, but after she slept with him and nothing happened, and they arrest the boy and say he's a rapist, put him in jail. She's still hanging out there. So she lost her love of her life. She lost her baby. And so she didn't want her to live. So she asked me, she said, is there any reason you think I should live? For what? Also, arranging that before her parents both suicide in Shanghai. So I really cannot think about any reason because, I had been through that. I wanted to suicide when the red guy, made me to denounce my parents and took me away from the home. But my father told me, you still had to stay alive. at least, you had to outlive the evils. And so I wanted to tell her about that. So also my parents, my father still, every Thursday, his day off, he always nonstop writing to me. And so I always can receive the letter. Doesn't matter, because it took about 2 or 3 months we had the mail coming. It's about 5,000 miles away. And but I told her, she said, well, I had no parents. I had nobody, nothing for me. You just gave me a reason you think I should live. Well, so what can I say? So I was thinking over, and I tried to find something. So I said that, during the Cultural Revolution and in the apartment building I live, every day I'll go home, somebody suicide. And they think they use death to contest and against this violence and to the people, like the Communist Party, and to demolish people, the humanities. But nothing happened after they die. Just nothing happened. Only thing happened is that their loved ones are very sad. So I just want to tell her about that. And then also I told her, if you believe in God, maybe you don't. Maybe you believe a creator. So I always believe that your creator create you, have purpose. Just think about that purpose. Maybe that purpose wants you to witness other people's life and to tell the truth. Or somebody else, they stay alive, but to witness your life. So any life, just like right now people say life matters. I think every life matters. If you believe the Creator, you believe in the purpose of the life. So that's all I can tell her. And so I said, well, maybe right now, you lost everything. But your boyfriend, Lee, still there. You feel so bad, like you betrayed him, I turned him in. But eventually, maybe if he can hang in there, he still can get out. So you still can get together. So right now, if they agree to transfer you to another village, so nobody will know what's happened to you. So you're probably much better. And you still can live, just hang in there. Anyway, she listened to me, and she said, okay, I'm trying. And I said, they're going to have this denounce critical meeting and the next day. But I can talk tomorrow. I talked to old Chen and about the old thing, what he did to you. And maybe they don't want these things to explode. Everybody will know about that. It's becoming their scandal. Right? If I talk about that, so they probably just quietly cancel the meeting and then transfer you to another village. So I talked to old Chen, and he was shocked, but I wasn't surprised. And he said, in that case, I said, I would have talked to other people, and those people control this committee, and they maybe will just cancel the meeting because the girl will talk, right? And so they canceled the meeting. The result is, and they transferred to another village. So about 40 years later, I went back, and we had a reunion. This 1,000 kids, we went to the labor camp together. We got reunion. They also invited this Shanghai Caring Committee. That guy, old Ding, was there. I'm looking for Ling. I'm looking for Lee, her boyfriend Lee. And they told me Ling eventually end up in the mental hospital and die over there. And Lee was get out 20 years later in jail. And then he lost everything. He's used everything. So basically, come out just in the very difficult situations. He's still living in Shanghai, finally back to Shanghai, but just barely made a living. And then one of a girl, we went together in the 1980s. He escaped from China and to Hong Kong. And he lived in Hong Kong eventually and becoming a human rights attorney. So
wow.
I talked to her. She told me, she said that she found lots of those kind of things. She wanted to write about it. First, she wanted to record it, to interview them. So she did and recorded, including Lee. And whoever still alive, basically they put all the kids, probably dozens, and accusing them rapes or whatever it is, and put them in jail, and also say they are the group, rapes group or something. I never know about that things. So she said that she investigated that. She have they recorded. Everybody, because after 40 years, So she said that she want to give me a copy, and maybe I can take it back to America and be safe. And because maybe in none of the states we can tell the people what's happened, really happened. And, And so, but actually, I said, well, I think we probably had to consult with the people, the victims, and they wanted to talk about it, or they don't, or whatever. But they still live in China, and most of it, they say they don't want it to talk about it. So that's what happened for this whole story.
Wow. That's a lot of anguish all in one story.
Very sad story. Very sad story.
Wow. Well, Amy, you've lived it, and there's really there's nothing really to say. You've lived this; it is true, and your story is echoed many, many times again by whole different families all across China.
That's right. Yeah. And just interesting enough is then you probably will think it's a joke, and they just published one photo book, and everybody, because that time only few people probably have a camera. I think one or two in thousand of us, but the most of the time when you get a photo is propaganda. The
That's
newspaper
right.
or something, they're coming. Yeah, so they put those all together, not just published. 300 yuan per piece. They asked me, do I need to have that one or not?
Yep, that's a very sad story and very sad memory. But we just have to remember it. That's how people live their lives under communist regime. Now, today we're going to talk about China could possibly had a handle to manipulate our 2020 U.S. election. We all heard of a name of Dominion voting system, and in the last few days there have been a report that Dominion System's parent company, which is called Staples Street Capital, received $400 million on October 8. That was recorded by the SEC process, that the money was from a Switzerland bank called UBS, and that bank was 75% owned by Chinese communist regime. So, do you think that the Beijing's leader got a handle to manipulate the 2020 U.S. election? Well, now this is not the only report, and before we start talking about this, we're going to first of all give you a couple piece of audio, that's an interview done by Worldview Weekends TV, that's done by a host of Brennan host, who was interviewed General Flynn. Let's listen to the couple very short audio soundbite.
What we have seen is and I know this, over the last probably 2 decades and probably longer, I could, give you a little bit of a history lesson in that, but I won't. But over the last couple of decades, what we have seen is a complete shift in how fast I believe that Communist China, in their long-term plan, decided that to sort of move up their plans to become the global superpower, sole global superpower on the planet. And their sort of plan was by about the middle of this century that we're in right now. And I believe during the last 2016 election, when they didn't get the candidate that they needed and the kind of ideology that they saw America moving towards, they were not going to allow 2020 to happen. And so now what we have is this theft with mail-in ballots, the theft with this software, Smartmatic software, and Dominion, these Dominion systems. These are systems that are not owned by this country. They're not owned by this country. They're owned by other. They were introduced into this country. How can we say, as the United States of America, how can we say that we accept a system that is not made in this country, and not even and in many cases the ballots aren't even tallied in this country? How can we say that here in this country that we accept that?
There's another piece of audio soundbite, which is a part of the same interview done by the Worldview Weekend TV interview of General Michael Flynn.
Let me just stop you there, General, because you just said something very interesting. You just said that who has just opened up the Kraken, and then you just described what the Kraken was. We all know the term because of Sidney Powell using it, but you just said what it is. Can you back up on that?
Yes. Sidney got the term Kraken because that's the nickname of the 305th Military Intelligence Battalion. And that has been her source, along with other sources that Mary and I know about, but we don't want to talk about. And so we're getting the different sources that are relaying this. But the important thing is they identified, now get this, they identified China, Iran, and Russia as being involved in this and manipulating the votes. In addition, the U.S. Army, the U.S. Special Forces Command seized a server farm in Frankfurt, Germany, because they were sending this data from those 5 states or 6 states through the internet to Spain and then into Frankfurt, Germany. Special Operation Forces seized that facility. So they have those servers. And they know all this data they are providing.
Well, there you go. That's some very startling information from this one report. The audio appeared on a interview that was being conducted by Brannon House, and he was talking with General McInerney, and it's very interesting bunch of sound actually that is coming place. Amy, all of this information is really quite disturbing to me. And what's kind of disturbing to me about it is the fact that the mainstream media has not really picked up on this story like you think it would.
Yeah, never reported. I was thinking right now it's like I have a friend other country like Australia, New Zealand, even people in China. They ask me about for the news about something because they think they don't have enough. They think America is a freedom of the speech, so we can get all kind of things. But now I don't know. I have nothing to tell them. And they would tell me something, just like Nan said, from India and some Japanese report.
And the BBC, but from the United States, even the United States, you'd think the United States would be all over this story, the media here.
Well, this is how strange the media nowadays gets to. It's really strange. Nobody really care. I mean, you would think we have the whole democracy is based, your whole equal rights is based on one person, one vote. But once you have this entire Chinese communist regime actually possibly behind your voting machine, that's doing whatever you don't even know what they are doing. Yeah. We're talking about Beijing. It's a pickup. It's possibly alter the result of an election that nobody care about. That's just really strange. But anyway, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about how possible that Beijing's leader, Chairman Xi, it's here pick up the next president of the United States. We are going to I'm going to introduce our honorable guest here, General Vallely, who is a retired 2-star U.S. Army Major General, and he was in Vietnam War and retired in 1993 as a Deputy Commanding General at U.S. Military Pacific Command. He was also the founder of Stand Up America U.S., an organization dedicated for First Amendment, and he's our honorable guest today. Hello, General Vallely. Welcome to our program.
Well, thank you, Nan. Happy to be with you again.
Oh, that's great. We're going to talk about China's possible getting a handle on our 2020 U.S. election to manipulate the election outcomes. What can you tell us about that?
Well, from the reports that I've received and been able to discuss with some people in Washington, D.C. that are involved in the investigation part of the Trump team, but it's apparent when you look at Dominion and Smart Card, the high-tech companies, and their involvement with the Chinese Communist Party, you start linking the dots, connecting the dots. So you got Dominion, Smart Card, you got the Chinese Communist Party, you have the U.S. elections, you have the machines at every precinct level in America, each county with a precinct where the votes are then gathered and then reported. And so now we have found through the investigation that these machines have been manipulated to change the votes. And when we look back on election night in the United States, about 2 o'clock in the morning, all the voting stopped. And then for 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours later, they were loaded with a number of other votes that came in electronically. And then that's the point in time in that 4 to 6 hours where it appears that these Dominion machines were manipulated and flipped thousands, hundreds of thousands of votes that we're looking at now from President Trump to Joe Biden. And so that's what this investigation's all about now, of Sidney Powell working it very, very hard, and then the separate Trump legal team. But boy, we have uncovered illegal backdating of ballots. We just found a young man, Ethan Pease, for example, up in Wisconsin, that loaded up some 100,000 plus votes that were sitting on a ballot or on a one of those carriers as he delivered the mail that early morning from the U.S. Postal Office Service. So, boy, I'll tell you, it is thick now, and it's getting more detailed as we go on, man.
Hold on just a second. We were talking about China, but then you're talking about someone else actually loaded votes to the Dominion. Is that through the Dominion voting system computer?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Once those
I saw the
connection,
video. Yeah.
Go ahead.
But can actually, I thought this is a secure, right? When we select a voting system that they will count our votes, that's supposed to be secure. How come a person can just go there and upload tens of thousands of votes by himself?
Okay, how is that possible, General?
It's called hacking. And we know the Chinese. We know the Chinese are good at it. America's good at hacking into systems, where you actually can enter into a computer, into the hard drive, and extract information. And especially once it's connected to the internet, it makes it even easier. So these sophisticated fraudsters all around the world that are paid big money today to be able to hack into banking systems, corporate accounts, your own personal accounts. I myself have been hit, at least 3 or 4 times by illegal entry into, say, my credit card or bank account. And I'm sure we all have stories about that. So that's the reality of the world. And the Chinese Communist Party have been very involved in Silicon Valley, in the high-tech industry of America. And we've had Chinese agents actually working, that we know, in Silicon Valley. Some have been arrested already over the last few years. So it's a web of deceit, a web of fraud, a web of treason to take away the votes from President Trump. That's what it's all about.
Amy, did you want to ask the General a question?
Yeah. Yes. First, I'll say, I think it's honored to have a general come back to our program again. And our audience just love you. They can't get enough from you. And today I have two questions. Number one is, what do you think about our Attorney General, Ling, his statement about the conclusion of the investigation? I'm kind of confused because the AP said, it's the conclusion is no widespread fraud, whatever it is, Justice Department. And later they say that AP was misleading. So what's your interpretation for this whole thing?
Well, we know our Department of Justice has been corrupt. We know the FBI has been corrupt. They've been involved in fraudulent activities against the sitting president of the United States. And we had a special counsel that came out last week. He said, well, we really don't have any definitive information against the Russian intrusion, the Ukraine, when they tried to impeach President Trump. And we know, in fact, that's a lie. We know, in fact, that the entire FBI, which is a part of the Department of Justice, is totally corrupt with the Mueller investigation and other FBI officials that have been in front of those hearings. So we can't figure out Barr right now. I don't know what he's up to, but he should be loyal to the president, loyal to the country, loyal to the Constitution. I'm not sure where he's coming at. It's very confusing now. But they came out with a caveat late yesterday. Barr's spokesman had said, well, that really didn't reflect the exact statement. They had just said, well, so far we haven't been able to identify any fraud that changed the votes or the voting on January 4th. On November 4th.
Yeah, General, so I have the second question related to is, so we the people, you think we still can trust our justice?
No.
The judicial system?
No.
Yeah. right now we have a mountain of the evidence. So-called legal, they call it substantial evidence.
Yes.
But the substantial evidence means, and have to be a reasonable mind to accept. So you think our justice, are they a reasonable mind?
No, they're corrupt. They're politically corrupt. Let's put it that way, and that's been validated for several years now. That they've politicized the Department of Justice and the FBI and the CIA with what we call deep state operatives, and these deep state operatives are a part of the Democratic fraud that's going on with the Democratic Party to unseat President Trump, and that's what it's all about.
So what are we going to do with the people? How we can take back the ownership?
Well, that's going to happen because I think we're in the beginnings of a civil war in this country. The division is so great, and that we have a Democratic Socialist Party, communists, many of them, that want to take this country towards a full-blown socialism and communism, and to gain more power of the government that has more power over the money, more power over the people who work in government, and basically, as we've seen in other communist countries, they want to completely control the mind, the thought, and we have high-tech companies like Facebook and Google that are participating with these initiatives of the Socialist Democratic Party in the United States, as I call them. We have never seen this in the country. In my years, I'm 81 years old, but never did I ever think we would come to this in America.
General, I have a question for you. As a retired military guy and a guy who's been around the military for all of his professional life, I would assume. How do you, as a military guy, view this? I mean, you're sworn to defend the Constitution, just like police officers are, and presidents,
right,
and local supervisors at the local level. We all take, everybody takes the same oath basically, but you've taken it, as a military person at a different level than most people. Tell me about where this puts you and other folks who are serving our country in the military. Where does this dilemma we're in put you guys?
Well, I think, if you look at it, that I think with these operatives we have in the deep state, and when I was on active duty, we called it the giant bureaucracy, for example, in the Pentagon, with your full-time servants, at the different levels of government. But I don't think they care about the Constitution. They don't care about the oath. They figure they can work around the oath or anything that's been said previously because they don't really care. They're out to really change America and change it into a socialist state. We have a number of generals, admirals that have not supported President Trump. And I know many of them, and they were all the generals and admirals that couldn't win a war. But yet we had 225 that we put together who are supporting Trump, admirals and generals and senior officials. But we saw the politicization of the military starting with Clinton and a general named Wesley Clark. And then, of course, under Obama, it was completely turned around in the Pentagon because he had no respect for the military, as the Clintons didn't. And that's all proven by Secret Service agents that worked for them, that wrote books and testified to that. But certainly, there's a great part of the military today, especially the Special Operation Forces, the Special Operations Command, are very solidly behind our president. And there's many other generals and admirals on active duty. The list I was talking about was retired admirals and generals who had served for all the way back to World War II and the Korean War and Vietnam.
It's interesting to me, and I think to Nan and Amy as well, that we are focusing on this program on how China seems to be trying to affect various decisions around the world in various countries, both economically and I think now we've been discussing in this program politically. But do we, I would assume you feel the same way that a lot of folks who are listening to this program feel, that we're in real danger of being taken over by another nation.
Well, I think that's the whole effort of the Chinese Communist Party to take America out of being the dominant superpower in the world, replacing it as the superpower of the world. And they're moving on all fronts. If you look at what the Chinese Communist Party is doing, they're moving militarily. They've greatly expanded their military in the last 5 years. The Silk Belt Initiative across China, into the Middle East, up into Europe. The infiltration into Canada. You cannot believe how infiltrated the Chinese Communist Party are in Canada through Vancouver, British Columbia, on into Toronto and Quebec. And then you take all the sister cities they've set up throughout the world. And so financially, militarily, agriculture, blockchain, what we call chain supply, they are involved across the board, and they've done a very good job at it. I have to admit that. But now we've caught them. We know what they're up to, and we know when they released that COVID into the world scene, it was just devastating. But yet they deny it. But we have proof that they're the ones out of Wuhan that really promulgated and were responsible for the spread of the COVID-19, and maybe another follow-on virus coming next year.
Now, General Vallely, one thing I have been always told that when you go to vote, the voting machine is not supposed to connect to the internet. It's supposed to be operated by itself. But now we are told the voting machine actually connecting to the internet, and also our votes were tallied outside of this country, and it will send all around the country to many countries. Is that true?
That's true. And the one of particular notice that's been in the news the last week has been the American consulate in Frankfurt, where the CIA and the FBI had set up a computer center and managed it out of Germany. And we know a lot of those votes came back through that server, and supposedly, and I don't have a lot of definitive information, that was seized last week by the U.S. military. But I don't have any real confirmation on that. But it appears that probably did happen. But, back to your question, look what they did to General Michael Flynn. What a tragedy to take this great general and into the mud for 4 years now. And finally, thank goodness, President Trump pardoned him. He was a great leader, a great general, and I knew him very well.
Yeah, let me ask you about that, if I might, General Vallely. When a person like Flynn gets, taken through the system like he did in our country, and then ends up being pardoned by the president, he doesn't really get any vindication, does he? I mean, he gets pardoned. But I mean, it's not the same as being vindicated, is it?
Well, anytime you get marred in the system and you're in the press and they call you a liar, and that sets in the minds of people for a long time. For General Flynn to overcome that image now is very, very difficult. That's what's sad about it. But look at what they've done to President Trump, his family. Look what they've done to others, just marred their reputation. Look what the Mueller investigation did. And then, what's his name? What's the congressman from California?
Schumer?
Schiff. Yeah, Shifty Schiff. Shifty Schiff. Look at these guys, how many lives they've ruined and have extolled them and have marred their image on TV that America was subjected to watch. I'll tell you what, this Democratic Socialist Party, they're criminal in nature, they're corrupt, and we cannot afford to have Joe Biden become president of this country. We just can't afford to do it. It's going to cause a lot more strife and a tremendous civil war to come if they take over and try to move this country to socialism. in communism, in my opinion.
If you've just joined us, we're talking with General Vallely. He is somewhat of an expert on most all the stuff we're talking about, and we're grateful to have him with us. We're going to, General, I understand you can stay with us into the next hour. Is that correct?
Sure.
All right. I have to take a break here to we're getting close to the end of the first hour. We're going to take a break on China Uber Alice, and we'll be back in just a moment with Nan Su, the General, and Amy Howe. And, of course, I'm just here pushing the buttons. We'll be right back in a few moments.
This is another Longevity product update. I'm Dave Michaels, here to tell you about Collagen Peptides. Collagen is the foundation for our skin, nails, cartilage, blood vessels, organs, and even gut lining. As we age, we lose some of that collagen, and this can show up in the form of wrinkles, muscle and joint pain, and fatigue. Help your body replenish that collagen with Collagen Peptides from Longevity. Safe and effective, they are also screened for quality and hydrolyzed for optimal absorption. The unflavored formula contains no shellfish and can be added to smoothies, coffee, food, or drink without changing their flavor. The berry formula can be mixed with any of those or with water to instantly create a refreshing drink. Neither formula contains any sugar. Both are sourced from grass-fed beef, fish, cage-free chickens, and eggshell membrane. Help your body fight the effects of aging with Collagen Peptides from Longevity. To order, contact your local Longevity distributor or log on to kscohealth.com. That's kscohealth.com.
People do not like going to the dentist unless they're going to this dentist. Hello, folks. Michael Olson here with Dr. Guy Peabody. How has healthcare changed with respect to dentistry over the past 20 years, Doctor?
Well, overall, healthcare has changed in a way where people are being treated a little more like a number. So one of the things we're excited about is we get to be that blast from the past. We're more of your Marcus Welby kind of office. We know our patients. We know their family members. We don't treat them like a number, and we give them the time and the care to give them the quality result they want, and they feel well cared for.
What is the result when you've restored dental health to somebody who hasn't had any for a long time? What kind of change does that affect in them?
Well, it brings about a tremendous sense of confidence within them and peace of mind.
Call Dr. Guy Peabody for a consultation today and wake up to a beautiful smile tomorrow. 831-457-0343 or visit drpeabody.com.
Hi, this is Hedva. Tune in every Thursday night at 9 for Hear It Now on KSCO. What is the it in Hear It Now? It's life. Life after an abortion. Listen to what my guests have to say. Call in. Be a part of the conversation. That's Hear It Now, Thursdays at 9 to 9:30 on KSCO, the radio heart of Santa Cruz.
KSCO has some of the most intelligent listeners on the planet, and most intelligent minds want to know, what are my options for taking Social Security benefits? Do I need an estate plan? When, where, and how do I enroll in Medicare? If you want answers to these and other hot financial topics, listen to Money Moves. Host Pamela Fugit-Hedrick and her guests have tips and tools you'll need so you can manage your money effectively. That's Money Moves, 7 p.m. Thursdays here on KSCO.
Program is China Uber Alice. You're listening to AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. If you want to find out more about the program, please, you can do so really quite easily by going to the website, ChinaUberAlice.com. Sign up for our web newsletter, and you'll learn a lot about the program itself. We're coming up on, we got about 4 minutes before news time. General Vallely, I kind of wanted to bring this back to China itself. Now, we talked about the fact that our voting machines, the voting apparatus, apparently can be hacked, and apparently was, if you believe some of the news stories out there. Let me ask you about this. Can we monitor how China monitors us? In other words, can we hack the hackers in China and keep abreast of what they're doing?
Absolutely. Absolutely we can. Yep. I mean, you take cyber terrorism today and you shroud it and if you get cyber security, that we've spent a lot of money on just in the last few years under Trump on cyber security. So we're getting better and better at it. But I think we were very lax before. I think the corporations were lax. The government agencies were lax. We've let the Russians, we've let a number of other countries, and China, for example, Chinese military, really get into our systems. And they've been able to take a lot of the technologies they've derived from that hacking and put it into new aircraft carriers, new guns. So it's become very sophisticated, but we let them in the door, okay? We let them in the door because we were too lax. Now we're smarter than that, and we are tightening up on cybersecurity, on who gets in and who we work with. And that's why we're trying to prevent right now and have an act in front of, I think it's in front of the Senate, to limit the number of foreigners that can come in and work in our companies under the H-1S visa program. Yep. So
seems like an awfully big. Now that we've let it happen, it seems like an awfully big thing to overcome.
Tremendously, yeah. A lot of work. And we have our National Security Agency, as you know, which is back on the East Coast. And then, of course, our military monitors overseas through the different consulates and embassies of what's going on in various parts of the world. So our tentacles are out there. Our ears are open now. We're much more sophisticated than we've been ever in the United States, but still it's not enough.
Yeah.
Now,
go ahead, Amy.
Just one more question. So, General, what do you think if Biden become a president, so those things going to be reset?
Well, all you have to look at some of the people that Biden wants to bring into his presidency. These are old Obama carryovers and completely inefficient. And as many senators have said about Joe Biden, he hasn't made a right decision on foreign policy in 47 years in government. So he doesn't have a real good track record of being successful. It's not only the incompetent people that Obama had, but the different policies and strategies that weaken the United States throughout the world.
Yeah, I think that's really the big issue, is the difference in philosophy among the various people who come into office at different times. It's difficult for other countries around us to follow along sometimes, I think. General, sure. We'll be back in about 6 minutes. We've got to join the National News Network and find out what's going on around the world. If you'll hang with us, we greatly appreciate that. We'll be back with General Paul Vallely in just a moment. I'm Bill Graff, along with Nan Su and Amy Howe. You're listening to China Uber Alice on AM 1080 KSCO Santa Cruz. It's coming up on 3 o'clock. This is KSCO Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters. With COVID-19 cases rising, some Democratic officials are beginning to shut things down. California Governor Gavin Newsom says that as hospitalizations surge, he will impose a new stay-at-home order that's projected to impact all regions of his state by the end of December.
Regions where the ICU capacity is falling below 15%. We are now mandating that we are implementing a stay-at-home order for 3 weeks.
The new rules would require hair salons and barbershops to close, limit retail stores to 20% capacity, and only allow restaurants to offer takeout and delivery. An aide to President Trump's been banned from the Justice Department after seeking sensitive information. White House correspondent Greg Clugston reports.
The President's Justice Department liaison was told to vacate the building after top DOJ officials learned of Heidi Stirrup's efforts to collect insider information about ongoing cases. 3 people familiar with the matter tell the Associated Press that Stirrup, who was installed at the Justice Department a few months ago, was banned from the building after trying to pressure staffers to give up sensitive information about election fraud and other matters that she could relay to the White House. Greg Clugston, Washington.
Survivors of a terrorist attack that killed 14 people at a holiday party east of Los Angeles have observed the 5th anniversary of that assault. San Bernardino County officials say a private memorial ceremony that also included families of the slain was held Wednesday outside the county government center. Plans also were announced for a memorial at the building. A husband and wife, Syed Rizwan Farouk and Tashfeen Malik, opened fire on county workers on December 2nd, 2015 at another government building. 14 people died and 22 were injured. The couple later died in a shootout with police. On Wall Street, the Dow by 85 points. The Nasdaq rose 27. More on these stories at townhall.com.
KSCO has some of the most intelligent listeners on the planet, and most intelligent minds want to know, what are my options for taking Social Security benefits? Do I need an estate plan? When, where, and how do I enroll in Medicare? If you want answers to these and other hot financial topics, listen to Money Moves. Host Pamela Fugit-Hedrick and her guests have tips and tools you'll need so you can manage your money effectively. That's Money Moves, 7 p.m. Thursdays here on KSCO.
Hi, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum, and I want to invite you to join me this Saturday, 3 o'clock on Stepping In, as I discuss some of the newest innovations in healthcare. You're going to find out what you can do to get your body healthy so that you can live long and happy. We'll see you this weekend, 3 o'clock on KSCO.
Here's the townhall.com business brief.
A late stumble left the S&P 500 just short of its third straight record high in a row, even as other indexes rose today. The benchmark index slipped less than 0.1% after being higher for much of the day. The wobbly trading came after Wall Street rocketed higher last month as hopes built for coming COVID-19 vaccines. A couple of economic reports that came in better than expected helped support stocks today. One showed the growth in the U.S. services sector, including healthcare and retail, was stronger than economists expected. The Dow gained 85 points to close at 29,969. The Nasdaq ahead 27 to 12,377. The S&P dropped 2 points to 3,667. New York oil up 40 cents to $45.69 a barrel. With business, I'm John Scott.
News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters in Washington. The head of a House committee is threatening a subpoena for Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross unless he delivers overdue census documents to lawmakers.
New York Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney says the Census Bureau missed a November 24th deadline to deliver documents to lawmakers to keep them apprised of anomalies found in the tracking of population figures used to allocate congressional seats. Also, the impact on the accuracy of the 2020 census. Internal documents suggest the Census Bureau anticipates the count won't be ready until after Inauguration Day. That would interfere with President Trump's contested plan to exclude people who are in the country illegally from being counted. Jackie Quinn, Washington.
The Senate has narrowly confirmed the nomination of Christopher Waller for the Federal Reserve's Board of Governors, placing another of President Trump's picks on the Fed's influential board after a string of high-profile rejections. More on these stories at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters in Washington.
KSCO News Talk time is 3:05. I'm Sam Quinn with your King of the Hill traffic and weather. Let's start off in King City, as we've been telling you all day long. Highway 1 northbound at between 1st and Broadway. We have some construction taking place there that is delaying traffic through the area. And in Monterey, Salinas to be exact, Highway 68 westbound at Portola. We have a traffic hazard reported there. That is evidently a grossly smoking vehicle is what it is. And units have been assigned to look into that. Taking a look at Highway 17 right now up and over the summit, that is accident-free, moving at the limit. Highway 1 from the Fishhook down to Monterey, yes, that is clear as well. Highway 101 right now from San Jose to King City, that is accident-free and moving at the limit. Your Central Coast forecast for this afternoon, mostly sunny skies, looking for a high of 65 degrees today. Tonight, decreasing clouds, low expected 42 degrees. Tomorrow, sunny skies with a high of 66 is what we're looking for. Right now, outside the KSCO studios, it is 64 degrees. Now, stay tuned. We have the second hour of China Uber Alice on KSCO.
Thank you for joining us for our program today, China Uber Alice. If you'd like to find out more about how the program looks at things and the inner workings of how the show is put together and past archives and all of that, go to ChinaUberAlice.com and sign up for our newsletter. You'll learn about the program and you'll have access to a whole bunch of stuff on our website. Now, I'm here with Nan Su and Amy Howe, and our special guest continuing with us this hour is General Paul Vallely, a general who's very knowledgeable about this particular topic.
Yes, that was we had a great discussion in the previous hour. Now, General Vallely, here is I have another question. We have talked about that China actually trying to put their hands into our election 2020 and flip the votes from President Trump to Biden. Now, which just brought me the curiosity. What's the difference? Why China, Beijing tried to do that, and what's the difference between Trump's China policy and Biden's China policy?
Well, if you look back at Biden Obama, you can see what their Chinese policy was. You can see the transactions that occurred by the Biden family. Joe Biden and his son Hunter, who got paid millions and millions of dollars by the Chinese, that then were shared with Big Daddy, as they wanted to call him, and Big Daddy was Joe Biden, the big man. So we know the influence that the Chinese would have over Biden, and Xiaoping, he knows that too, how weak he is, and that he'll have leverage over Biden, where they could never get any leverage over President Trump, because they knew he was a tough leader. He was a strong man when it came to finance and trade and economics and making economic deals. And so when you're dealing with strength, of course, you're partially intimidated because you don't always get your own way. That China had their own way for decades regarding the United States. But they know Joe Biden will coalesce, and they'll have him right under their finger. So why wouldn't you want Joe Biden to win?
General, let me ask you this, though. If you're China, I'm just looking at it purely from a economic standpoint for China. China makes so much stuff now that we consume around the world in other places other than China. And I do understand your point about a stronger American president would change the way tariffs are done and trade agreements and that sort of thing. But it seems to me that China's already got economic ends around the world. How would a Biden presidency make that much of an economic difference to China?
Well, I think he would coalesce and allow China basically to go along and do whatever they want to and not have any kind of tariffs and not hold their feet to the fire on especially transfer of technology, which has been a big thing with President Trump, of cutting off the transfer of technology to China and Chinese companies. You can even see today the announcement that the New York Stock Exchange, American Stock Exchange, over the counter, they're going to treat Chinese companies as far as their financial statements just like U.S. companies. They were treated differently before. They could get away with about anything and bury it in their books, in their transactional books. So now that's going to change, that they've got to be supervised and be monitored just like U.S. companies on Wall Street. So that's very big. Now, Biden, under him, he probably would not have done anything like that because he would acquiesce to what the Chinese would want to do because he's a weak person. He's not a strong leader. And he'll not be able to stand up to any of the leaders in the world. And he'll back off.
That was my next question. Would China then take the American? Would other countries like Europe take the American lead in dealing with China, so that China would then face less strong leaders around the world? Does it work that way?
Well, yes. You have weak European leaders, as we all know, and they would acquiesce as well to China as they have before. The Germans have stood up a little bit, but not too much. But the Europeans would welcome a Joe Biden too, because he wouldn't be as tough. And that's why Trump has been a disruptor, as we call him, disrupting the past ills and past bad deals. For example, with Iran, with NATO, he has stood up and said, yes, we're America first. We're going to take care of ourselves. And we have to do that, because the stronger America is, the stronger other countries will be as we work with them. No, we'll continue to buy Chinese goods as the rest of the world will. We just want an equal and fair trade policy, that's all. So China, as far as supplies of certain things, is going to continue. So we don't want to completely destroy the Chinese economy. That's not where we're coming from. We just want it to be fair trade agreement.
The General Vallely, let me ask you this question. Let's talk about the military preparation to facing the challenge from China's growing military power. Now, how far you think we are ahead of China? How close they are to really become a real threat to the security of the United States?
Well, they're a real threat now. They've got a very strong army. The warships that they've come out with, I don't know whether you've seen pictures of the new aircraft carrier groups, the new destroyers, and the new aircraft, which matches much. They're like our F-35 and some of our other aircraft. And so they've been able to expand their influence, of course, in the South China Sea with building up those silent atolls that are in the South China Sea, and make them really as points of placing their military to influence operations around that area. And so with that, they continue to improve what they have. But one of the things you have to really watch out for is space. That's the new battlefield.
Yes.
And the Chinese are working very hard on being able to launch satellites, okay, which then can be triggered to launch a nuclear weapon from the satellite. Keep that in mind.
Now, let me ask you this. What do you think our military generals look at the Trump's administration and the possible coming Biden administration? How about the defense policy? Do you think that they have a preference for a strong leader? Which one will be?
Well, Biden will be just like Obama. He'll be very weak when it comes to defense. That's why our armed forces became so weak under Obama that it took a lot of money and a lot of support under the first 3 years of the Trump administration. But certainly, when we look at the generals that he'll put in, the admirals that he'll have, it'll be much like Obama. And that's why our defense was so erratic and weakened under Obama. And you can't do that, because every time you take down the military and their capability, then something happens in the world and you got to build it all back up again. This happened in World War II. It happened in Korea. It happened in the Middle East. So you have a lot of problems, and if you don't have generals and admirals that stand up for the military, as they didn't under Obama, because he fired I think it was over 220 senior officers Obama fired because they wouldn't go along with him.
What's the reason Obama fired him?
Because he doesn't like the military. He's like Clinton. He had no respect for the military.
In the earlier program, you say there were some military.
Plus, he never served in the military. He had no clue.
That was That was going to be my point.
Organizer. Yeah.
Community
organizer.
Let me ask you that, General. You're a military guy. I've lived in the South Pacific on Guam for a while when I was a kid, and I know about the military. Let me ask you this: when you have because the military is. Our president is the commander-in-chief. That's the way the government's set up. But he oftentimes is a person who never served in the military. So from the military point of view, how is it that you take supreme orders from a fellow who might not know what it's like to go to Annapolis or another military college where strategy is taught? Do you try to educate the civilian leader who's in charge?
Oh, absolutely. And I was part of that under Reagan, and on through various presidents after that. And President Trump never served in the military. Clinton was a draft dodger. And I think President Reagan served some years during World War II.
I think he was actually in the media unit. He actually served, I think, making films for the Army, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. But he served. And then you have Obama coming in from the Chicago burbs there as the coordinator there.
Well, that's almost a war zone.
Yeah. The worst potato. Yeah, it is a war zone. Yeah. So, anyhow, but, and you can take, I've read books of the Secret Service who have worked with these presidents. Interesting what they write afterwards about how the various presidents, and Hillary Clinton hated the military. I mean, she would swear at them. No respect at all. Of course, they didn't respect the Clintons, and many of the military never respected Obama. And then they tried us under Clinton, and even under Bush, and under Obama, try to do this social engineering in the military. Rather than focusing on tactics and strategy and preparedness to defend America, they were off in all of these classes on social justice or social engineering, as we call it, and wasting a lot of our troops' time. And that influenced a lot of the minds in the military under Obama.
I don't want to get too far off the track here from China's, the focus on China, but I'm fascinated by your point of view, so I really want to ask you about this. How do you feel about the fact that we have a voluntary military now and not conscription? Does it make a difference in the soldiers?
Well, that's a very good question, and I had gone through that with the training after Nixon did away with the draft. I think in 1974.
Yeah, it was 19. I remember it well, actually.
Yeah, and we went to the all-volunteer force. Now, that meant that a lot of money had to be put into recruiting, of course, to bring the right people in. Under very good stringent requirements, they meet the physical and aptitude test. And we formed and we still do. We have a very fine army under that concept. Now, I believe you can have that same kind of commitment, and you can have that same kind of training specialties that these people can do under a draft army as well. I think we need the draft, because if we're going to go to war, the vast majority of the American people have to be involved in that war to some degree. They weren't during Vietnam, as you know.
Yeah.
And so there's pluses and minuses to the draft as well as to the volunteer army. Just keep in mind the volunteer army is much more expensive because of the recruiting money that has to go in to get these people to come in with incentives and so on.
Well, Paul, the reason I asked this is because China their military is, you spend time in the military, it's mandatory, and they have a lot more people than we do. And I was just thinking of the differences in the country's philosophies toward their own military, United States versus China, for instance.
Well, China is very disciplined. And the armies of Japan, Korea, very disciplined. And ours as well, but theirs to a much greater degree. And they don't have the tolerance in those armies that we do for our troops. They don't care. They take care of their families like we take care of our families, or their veterans, for example. That just doesn't happen in China. And I would say probably if they had the chance, they would probably not even want to fight. So I'm not sure strong in the China in the ranks is that strong. They're strong at the top in their officers and NCOs, but I think the ranks are very, very weak in China.
Now, General Vallely, let's go back to talk about our technology of our military. You talk about our space force, and also we discuss about now China can actually have their technology so advanced that they can come in to alter the election result of our presidential race. What do you think? Is the military actually concerned about the advancement of China's technology?
Oh yeah.
So how do we do we have actually a plan to deal with that?
Oh, absolutely. It's part of our intelligence assessment that's done on what we call threats to the United States. And that's what basically our military intelligence, the Defense Intelligence Agency, works very hard on, are monitoring other armies, other armed forces as to their capability, the type of weapons they have, the type of training they do, how effective are they. And so we watch that very carefully of those countries that would be a potential threat to the United States. And that goes on all the time. Plus, we watch them from satellites. We watch them from reconnaissance aircraft. So we're continually monitoring what's going on in China. We know everything that's going on in North Korea. We know everything that's going on in Russia, for example, if we can watch them, because we can pick up an automobile and its license plates from far in space. So we can track an automobile going from this building to this building. And so, yeah, we're much on top. We've always been ahead on that kind of intellectual intelligence, I'll call it.
Now, I have one last question. Now, recently, our Department of Defense has established a new command for all the Special Operation Force. Can you comment on that? What's the advantage to actually have to put all? I would imagine all the Special Operation Force from Navy, from Marine, from the Army will be under this new command. What's the advantage for that new command?
No, that's different. The Special Operations Command came in 1988 under President Reagan, and I was part of the study group that put that together. That gave a 4-star commander, and they put it in Tampa, Florida. And each service, Army had to put in the Rangers or psychological operations, the Delta Force, Special Forces. The Air Force had to put up aircraft, which were special helicopters and transport aircraft for the Special Operation Forces. The Navy then had Special Operating Forces, and then the Marines also have units that are dedicated under that title of Special Operations. What Trump has put in last year was the Space Command.
And that, of course, will monitor all the stuff in space, right?
That's right. That's above the ground. That's in space. Yep.
Now, this is a brand new command, a whole nother division of the United States military. Will it be focused completely on the military, or will there be any other kind of applications involved?
Oh, they'll be looking at everything as the military runs that. They'll be looking what kind of intelligence flows out of Silicon Valley as far as computerization. Because all those ships, all those aircraft, everything's based on computers today. Even your trucks and vehicles, right?
Yep, that's right.
So they'll be watching anything that would impact on the strength of an army, the strength of an air force. Yep, that'll all be monitored by intelligence. Yep.
You mean the Space Force?
Yes. Well, Amy, what was your question?
My question is, I think that's the future. Prepare for the future war. Is a space.
Right.
Will be totally different from before.
That's correct, and that's why I say a lot of money is going into space from the Russians and the Chinese and the Americans on the types of missiles that can be launched, the types of satellites that can be launched and put into orbit. And then from ground, those satellites will have nuclear weapons in them. And they can direct a signal to that satellite to fire those weapons on different countries. And so once those satellites are up there, they can hit about anything as they orbit around. And that's what the big threat is for the future from space.
Wow. That's a whole other concept. I don't even know if I want to think about that. General Paul Vallely, we want to thank you for your time. As always, you have greatly contributed to our program. We vastly appreciate your time and expertise.
Thank you, General Vallely.
You have a great program, so thank you for inviting me. Thank you, and Alma, thank you.
We hope to have you back on again real soon, but we appreciate your time today. We've got a whole hour of the General's time, and we appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right, that's General Paul Vallely, 2-star general, and he does know what he's talking about. So we would like for you, if you have any comments on the general's comments, if you want to talk about us or ask questions or have anything clarified, give us a call at 479-1080, 479-1080, and we will take your calls. And I don't know. I have to believe. Maybe I'm just an optimist. I don't know. I have to believe that our civilian leaders, even if they don't respect the military, at least will have their point of view educated by the military people that serve under the commander-in-chief.
Well, I think it's the general intention, how they understand the Chinese Communist regime. I'm a Chinese American. Okay, this is something really bothers me. I'm looking at the Biden's new cabinet selection. Our Biden's new selection of our UN ambassador. Her name is Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Mm-hmm.
Now you know who this lady is. She is a senior vice president from a group called ASG. Now ASG is an international consulting firm that doing business all around the world, but the biggest chunk of their business is in China.
Oh, really?
The biggest chunk of their business is in China. Now, for whatever the reason, I don't know for whatever the reason is, Biden's transitional team has 4 members, all from this so-called ASG group. Now, so that's what caught my attention. So I did my own research. So I trying to find out what ASG is doing in China.
Mm-hmm.
So as the result, what I found out is ASG is a company. This Linda Thomas Greenfield, the new supposedly the next our ambassador to UN is the ASG is doing the business. What they're doing is they're trying to educate how American companies deal with Chinese communist regime when they try to go to China to do business.
That's their main job?
That's their main job. So now
American company.
Yeah,
to
so
do business with China.
Yeah, so now, I trying to find out how they are going to. This is my curiosity drove me, right? So I trying to find out how ASG will train the American business leaders to deal with Chinese Communist regime when they open their new business subsidiaries in China.
Did you find out anything?
Yeah, I actually found out. So what happened is I look at they have names of their China's subsidiary of ASG. So I look at the names, I search all those names. They are all Chinese. And what I found out, actually, ASG basically hire all the high-level Chinese communist officials in China. They pay them high salary as not just the consultant. They are actually the top management of ASG subsidiary in China. So they have these Chinese high-level communist level officials to train the U.S. Companies that they're going to open their new business branches in China to train them how to deal with Chinese communist regime. That's what happened. And guess what? The senior vice president of that group, ASG, Linda Thomas Greenfield, is going to be the U.S. ambassador in the United Nations. I think she's going to train
if confirmed.
all the nations how to deal with Chinese communist regime. That really concerns me.
We have...
so it worked for China, CCP.
Yeah.
In other words.
We have several phone callers who have called in as the general ended his visit with us today. Let's check in with Fred in Santa Cruz. Fred, you're on China Uber Alice.
Well, thank you for taking my call. I have the utmost respect for your guests today and your show. I feel your guests are very brave in what they're doing. Over the last few weeks, I have found it confusing when you refer to our form of government as a democratic form of government. I was wondering if you could explain to me, along with your listeners, what you mean by that.
Democratic form of government? Well, we're a representative. We get to vote, and our vote gets counted in a rather unique way that our founders set up through the Electoral College. But we are democratic in the idea that we have a say in our government.
We are democratic in the way it's supposed to be, one person, one vote. So when I go to vote, I have the equal rights with the richest person in the world. He gets to put one vote, I get to put one vote. So that's supposed to be what it means by equal rights.
Okay, the reason why I'm confused is our founding fathers spoke exhaustively and wrote exhaustively against a democratic form of government because it's mob rule. If I can give you a metaphor, it's two wolves and a lamb deciding who's going to have what for dinner that evening. And I was brought up and taught that we have a constitutional republic.
Well, you were taught correctly, but it is still, even though it's a constitutional republic, it's still a democracy.
Well, it's a constitutional republic because in a democracy, the founding fathers realized that with 51% of the vote, nobody was protecting the minority, the 49%. And they did that by protecting our individual rights, our God-given rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And a democracy was very much feared by these founding fathers because the next step from a democracy is a dictatorship, what you find in China. And that's what's going on today. We're moving in that direction. And
well, I think we're trying. Are we not, though? You would have to agree that we're trying very hard to avoid it.
Well, I agree with that. But the reason why democracy is so dangerous is there's no protection for the minority. And what you're seeing it today with everybody getting down on whites or the Republicans or those that are with Trump. Matter of fact, there's people that are speaking out that they should take reparations against those people that stood up and voted for Trump. So we're heading in that direction. I think you cannot talk about the inequities of going on in China without emphasizing the fact that a democracy is not what we have. We have a constitutional republic. And just forget the democracy. That's out. Our founding fathers said no to that because they knew the next step was a tyranny.
Well, I think what we're talking about here basically is semantics.
No, I don't think we are. It is not a semantic, and I would like to hear your guest respond to it, and not just you. But it's not a semantic. If it was a semantic, it would not have been spoken and written about so exhaustively by our founding fathers.
Well, I want to say I will let Amy to talk about her idea of your comments. First of all, I want to say I'm totally for the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. As far as my experience when in China, every time when the Chinese Communist regime tried to crash a minority group, they always pick up only 5% of the population, or maybe even less than 5%, maybe 1 or 2% of the population as their enemy, and nobody else want to talk about it. Nobody else care about it because so the Chinese government say, well, the majority of people is okay with it.
Yes.
That's my experience when in China, and then I have several personal friends die in the last 20 years because they are the political dissidents or they are under the religious persecutions. Nobody cared to say anything, and
I know, and that's what our founding fathers. I think you made my point, and that's what our founding fathers recognized through history. They knew the nature of man. They knew that when man forms into groups, and some become more powerful than others, they oppress. And it was very important for our founding fathers to make it known that the only way you can protect a minority is to protect the individual rights of each person, both the majority and the minority.
That's right.
And I think that I really wish that your host today would go to Michael Zwirling and make that point to him, because I keep hearing, not only on this show, but on a few other shows on KSCO, referring to our form of government as a democracy, and it's not. I mean, we have a constitution, and it was there, and it was put there for a very good reason. And that was to protect all of us. And I don't know how you can even talk about the oppression in China, and gosh, both of you have gone through hell. You really have. I feel for both of you. You're very brave to speak up in light of what you've been through. But I don't know how you can talk about China and how oppressive they are unless you make it known and distinguish their form of government against ours, which is a constitutional republic, not a democracy. Because there's no protection for the minority. And that's what makes our system so unique, so valuable. And a constitutional republic is very fragile. And if you read on empires throughout history, it doesn't last long. And we're heading downhill right now. And I think that on this program, it's very important for this program and for your guests to distinguish that what makes us so different from China is that we have a constitutional republic and we're here to protect the minorities, like you stated earlier.
You've made your point. We appreciate it, and I got a full board. I got to move on here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah,
both of you.
It's
very good point.
You have a very enlightened point for us.
Yes, he does actually. And you know, I think
very important.
Yeah, it is very important, and I think that's one of the reasons why our voting system is set up with the Electoral College. Now, I don't happen to like the way the Electoral College is currently working, but I understand why it was set up in the first place, because it gives the states with less population more equal representation in the final outcome. I get why it was set up. Let's take a call from Dick in Santa Cruz. If I push the right button. Dick, you're on KSCO and China Uber Alice.
Hey, nice to hear your guys' voices again. I had a comment about the general, and I also, the last caller, real quickly. The Supreme Court might take up this election fraud that might have had threads all the way back to China and maybe even through the DNC. So anyway, that's all speculation at this point, but they could take it up. And my understanding is, as far as a constitutional republic, that the Electoral College might be canceled out in a sense that each state gets one vote. So I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but anyway, you can comment about that later if you want. As far as the general, he mentioned two words that kind of perked me up: Civil War. And yeah, it's very interesting. You guys are probably real familiar with that kind of stuff. Anyway, he showed an incredible disdain for Democrats. He's been in the military since Reagan, maybe even before, and I'm sure, Billy, you noticed that. So in any case, as far as China is connected to all this, and the machine you first introduced in the beginning, possibly having connections to those machines and the software / chips or whatever, they own them now, or they I guess before November or something, the parent company sold it to China. $400 billion, I heard, or something, million. Anyway.
400 million.
If you can.
400 million.
Okay, 400 million. All right, so it would be nice to verify that. It also would be nice to verify how deep a control they had over those machines. I hear right now, they're fighting to try to get these machines, but obviously, and there's all kinds of ways of updating them, including, flash drives, thumb drives. So this is incredible. This whole scenario must be kind of reminiscent. I don't know if you guys were around when China flipped and, when they had their big revolution or whatever. But all I can say is that I had liked to talk to the military general a little bit, because when he said civil war, the number one way a successful coup happens historically is when the military sides with one side.
Well, that's
so
one of the reasons.
Give me some comments.
It is one of the reasons why I asked him how military people view their civilian leadership, because all the that's the way our country's set up. Our head military guy is actually the president of the United States, and he can or cannot be a former military guy. We've had some presidents who were, Eisenhower was a military guy, but not often is it the case that our actual military head guy is a former military person.
And also the Department of Defense, it's a civilian guy always, yes, right? He cannot be active current duty military.
That's correct.
Guy, right?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Anyway,
I think the civilian leader, it really means that we the people actually the president worked for us, and then he worked in the pressure of people to assign those the head of a military.
And Dick makes some very good points and asks some very good questions about what we're talking about here. Because go ahead.
Yeah, I heard.
I was just going to say one more. I was going to add one more. One more domino, and we have talked about this in your other shows, and that is the complexity or the timing and the relevance of coronavirus out of China, and exactly they've already been accused of releasing it on purpose. So this is amazing to me. This whole historically where we are right now. If what I'm saying now, some of what I'm saying you have to add together, but if you added together the coronavirus, the fix of the election boxes and machines, and the outright disdain for the incoming administration, if it is the Democrats, by the military, that's like a 1, 2, 3 punch. And I think we should be on our toes and really look closely at that.
Well,
absolutely. I totally agree with you. See, at the beginning, actually, as far as just a few months ago, when people brought this issue to me and talk about the coronavirus was purposely released, I was kind of like, well,
skeptical.
Kind of a more skeptical. But more and more as we go, in this year, all these things happening together, it just make me more and more feel suspicious.
Well, welcome to the club.
Okay. I'll say goodbye. I know you guys have a lot more people.
Dick, thank you for the call. We appreciate you bringing up these topics, and we'll see if we can get some answers.
All right.
Take care. All right, we'll move on. John in Freedom is our next caller on China Uber Alice. Hello, John.
Hello. My subject was really designed for the general, but I will ask the question, and if he can answer it later, that would be fine. My question is, if belligerent militia, unorganized, were designed or set up to supplant the American government, those in government who are in violation of their constitutional law, isn't it possible that we could solve all the problems we have?
Wow, there's a question.
It's a question. I don't know the answer.
That's a constitutional question that I don't even know how we would suppress that kind of... are you talking about people have the right to? Well, he's asked a very good question. And he has left us, so I can't ask him to clarify it. But I think he stated it pretty well, right, when he said it there. And what would the military's role be? Because as I understand it, the United States military cannot be deployed on American citizens. I believe that
was that a part of the Constitution?
I think I don't know if that's part of the Constitution or if it's part of some of the interpretation of it later on. But as I understand it, in other words, there becomes a problem where they can't be deployed inside the United States against American citizens. But I'm unclear about how that. You know who I need right now is Charlie Friedman. Charlie Friedman can tell me exactly what I need to know.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I'm not there yet. Let's move on to Judith in Live Oak. Judith, you're on China Uber Alice.
Hey, thanks. I would have liked to talk to the general as well and ask him his opinion, but he probably couldn't have been able to say any more because this is a war and we're already in it. There is a war.
Are you talking about a cyber warfare?
No, I'm talking about the deep state and the Q team. The Q team is actually part of the military. But I also wanted to say that through my... I don't have the evidence for the Q team thing. I don't have the reference right now, but next week I could send that. It came out. The Q team is part of the NSA. It was set up under John Kennedy, and Donald Trump was asked about the Q team. I think he had to say he didn't know. This is the way that they have used to educate American patriots such as myself and thousands and millions. That's why hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people voted for Donald Trump. Anyway, the points I wanted to bring out was that last week, through my sources, which are very accurate, they're not MSM, we heard that George Soros was finally arrested because of his involvement with the Dominican machines. I think he was arrested out of Canada, perhaps. I'm not sure if Nan and you guys know that, but I bet you go. And then I also understand that Gina Haspel was shot. I don't know if she's dead or if she just shot in the leg, but that is absolutely hot rumor. She, of course, was brought in as the top of the CIA by Donald Trump. Now, how is Donald Trump going to, and the military Q team that are set to restore the republic, and also Fred was right about that. I think it was Fred. I mean, when Benjamin Franklin, when they came out of the Constitutional Hall, a woman that knew him came up to him and said, this has been told a lot lately, so I know this anecdote. She came up to him and said, Mr. Franklin, did we get a republic? And he said, you got a republic if you can keep it, ma'am. If you can keep it. Okay? So we're in a fight right now and struggle to keep it. And Gina Haskell was shot. Now, she's the head of the CIA. Why was she brought in? Because we have to see the corruption ourselves. So that's what I wanted to say.
All right, Judith, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. We've got one more call. Ron in Carmel. If this is the Ron I know. Hello, welcome.
Ron, you know. Hi, thank you for taking my call and thank you for the program. I just have got one question that's been in my mind lately. If we do degrade into a civil war, would that be the good time for China to attack us?
Well, it would sure be a weak time for probably if we're busy trying to fight our own internal strife, I don't see how it would hurt an effort from outside our country to try to, get a foothold in here. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think the Chinese communist regimes are really pleased to see a civil war take place in the United States. And one thing I know, ever since the beginning of this year, the military personnel in Taiwan, they have been really trying to plan ahead because they already at that time, 7 or 8 months ago, they already predict we may have a lot of controversy after the election. They are thinking that may create a window for China to plan an attack to Taiwan. Yeah. So this is, and then you just combine. So at that time, we didn't know we are going to in this kind of a mess that we end up knowing that our voting machine somehow let Chinese government had a handle on it.
Yeah.
So now you add all this thing into the discussion. That's just like feel more and more suspicious. Yeah. And with Dick just talked about the coronavirus was purposely released.
Well, there are many people who believe that.
Yeah. So it's just that I don't know. I don't know what to say anymore. I'm just really speechless.
I will say this, and I think Ron will back me up on this. There was a time when we another country attacked us, put us on our back heels. We then went into defend ourselves mode, and Ford stopped making cars and started making airplanes.
That's what
we were cranking out ships when we finally got going at the shipyards around the country. We were cranking out ships, one a month. We were moving. I mean, we coalesced into a country that wanted to protect itself. So anybody who might want to attack us or take us over, they better think real strong and hard about that one.
I think that right now they figure out that the timing, the window, is so important because right now so confused everything, Don't you think? You don't know when you're going to resolve this, resolve that. So they were looking for the time, which was the time window.
Yeah.
And the weakest point we have. So anyway, Ron.
Okay,
John,
thank you.
John, you really had a good question. I don't think I can sleep tonight. I think
yeah, Ron. Thanks a lot, Ron.
Really? Yes.
All right, we've got a question from Rory. I think Rory's probably calling from Watsonville today. Hi, Rory.
Hi, guys. Posse comitatus is the theory you were thinking of, Billy.
Thank you. Sometimes the brain cells stop working,
Yeah, I had to stop and think about it. That's the principle of the U.S. military not being deployed within the United States.
Now we can use the National Guard to defend our border and that sort of thing, but we just can't deploy the military on our own citizens. I couldn't remember the name of it.
Yeah, occasionally it can be done with the Insurrection Act and other acts. You got to remember Eisenhower used, I think, the 101st Airborne in one of the southern states to integrate the schools.
Yes.
I don't know if you recall that.
Yes.
So it can be used sparingly in unique situations. But thanks for having the jar on. Thanks for continuing your expose on China. And Nan Su, you might recall, because I know you did some early virus interviews with MC. And if you remember back, it was either April or May, Michael Olson had a forensic computer guy on, and they pinned down the whole idea that animals in the wet market brought the virus was a TCP ruse to get
Yes,
people off the
yes.
trail. Yeah, and that was settled. Like, bats aren't even eaten in Wuhan.
Yeah.
It was Indonesia.
Yeah.
The photos that were being shown were from Indonesia. So we know the CCP is dishonest and up to no good. We got to be on our toes.
Yep.
I do believe we're in a cold civil war. I don't want to see a hot civil war.
No, nobody wants to see that.
But I also think the blatant fraud that's now becoming more apparent each day. I challenge everybody, go look at the video, the security video that was taken in Georgia. I don't know which county, but it shows video of 4 workers after 10:30 at night when everybody else, all the Republican poll watchers were sent home. They start pulling suitcases of ballots out from under a
yes,
table.
I saw that too. Yeah,
I saw that news report.
Yeah, I saw that this morning.
Hey,
actually.
Rory, we're running out of time, and your phone is starting to drop out, but thanks for calling.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
All right. I'm going to get us to our commercial break, and then we'll come back to wrap the show up in just a minute on China Uber Alice.
Greg Kelly Reports is breaking records on Newsmax TV. President Trump was recently on, and millions tune into Newsmax every night. Greg asks the tough questions you want. Watch Greg Kelly at 7 p.m. Eastern or the rebroadcast. Newsmax is on all major cable systems and free on Roku, Zumo, YouTube, Pluto, and TVs like Samsung and LG. If your cable company doesn't carry Newsmax, call them and say you can switch if they don't carry it. Watch Newsmax today.
Do you have internet problems at your home or office? Etheric Networks Internet has been providing internet for over 12 years to the Central Coast. You do have an alternative. Etheric Networks is one of only a handful of internet service providers that signed the industry letter to the FCC supporting net neutrality and is dedicated to maintaining a secure, free, and open internet experience. Join the Etheric Network and experience our superior service. Our contracts are friendly and simple to understand, as opposed to the complexity you will find with the cable and phone companies. We offer predictable monthly pricing. We have local technical support that's available 7/24. Importantly, Etheric offers the same speed on upload as download. We offer a symmetric service. Traditional weakness of both phone and cable companies will often offer much slower uploads and downloads. Call 650-399-4200 or visit etheric.net online. That's ETHERIC.net. Don't forget to mention KSCO to receive your $239 discount on installation equipment. Happy surfing.
This is Bill Graff inviting you to go to the ChinaUberAlice.com website, sign up for our newsletter, and check out our past programs and some of the links we have on that. I'm looking forward to next week when Amy tells us another one of her great stories. Amy, thank you for being with us. We greatly appreciate your input today, as always.
Amy, are you still there?
Yes. Yes, I'm still. Thank you,
yeah.
Billy.
Yeah, hopefully you will continue your story next week.
Yes, I will.
You always stop at the right moment.
Yes, she does.
Just as we want to know more.
That is very true. Listen, we want to thank everybody for participating in our program today, Nan Su. I would assume that you're going to follow up on some of the things you talked about in the Epoch Times, and some of the things you've been talking about today intrigued me, so I'll be checking that out as well.
Yeah,
we'll be back next Thursday at 2 o'clock from 2 to 4 on China Uber Alice. This is KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey. If I have all my ducks in a row, I believe that we have Flight 1080 coming up next with Josh and Cammie at the controls of the airplane today. In any case, thank you for joining us. The National News Network will bring us up to date in just a moment. This is KSCO Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey.